Okay. So far it is. Received from the side. Okay. Yeah, if I move it,
my fix that.
But then why she keeps going around? What if she's slacking?
He's buying sweets.
The switch work as a Wi-Fi extender? Why do you have one? Come on, people.
Is that one over there? Yeah.
Good evening, Ben. How you doing? You okay?
Good evening, yeah, Baruch Hashem. It's my last night.
Oh, you're back Motzah?
My back month Shabbos, yeah. It's the Shabbat.
Then so you can come and give us a l'chaim when you're done.
Absolutely.
Don't take Corona though. No, it's going to be on that angle for today, Ben.
Yeah, no worries. I can see, it's fine.
Can you hear me?
You hear?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben. Let you out, yeah?
Tomorrow night, then. What's the Shabbos?
Oh, so it's Friday. Tomorrow Shach is 7:25.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's straight after. Then 8 o'clock, not 5 minutes. We're up to Daf Hey Omud Aleph, about 10 lines from the top. We're dealing with a question which we're going to be dealing also for a lot of today. And the question is like this, that we know that on Erev Pesach, there are 3 distinct times. There's a time which is completely mutter, there's a time which is awesome in Rabbanon, and there's a time which is awesome in Hator. When is it awesome in Hator? From which time of day?
Midday.
So midday, the end of the 6th hour, which is midday. So they will ask the question, where in the Torah do we have a Mekoi? Where do we have a source that from midday it is awesome? So the Gemara yesterday actually told us 1. And today we'll have a few more. Anybody remember the one which we had yesterday? What was the Mekoi we had? You have to get rid of Chometz and Elfi. There are 2 psukim. There are 2 psukim. Which if you sit in the right angle, you're going to be famous for them. What's the 2 psukim? Shiva Yomi only once in for 7 days you must have Chometz. Ach b'yom rishon, on the first day get rid of Chometz. And the Gemara understood that it can't be on the first day of the 7, because then you don't have 7 days. Without Chometz, you've only got 6.5. The way the Gemara asks it is that these psukim contradict each other. Way before, the Gemara asks maybe the whole of the day before. What was the last thing we learned? Ach is mechalik. And Rashi says 2 explanations why ach is mechalik. Either because the word ach is always to limit, or because it's gematria, not the kind of gematria that we're used to. It's a gematria of where you miss out 7 letters. Ach, bat. There's actually, well, again, it's got other ones as well. There's something 7 is special, yes. So it comes out to 8, which is hard. Now the world gives another code. We have a Shava that teaches us that the 14th of Nisan is called Vishan. That means you don't need to come on to a contradiction in the Psukim. It's enough that the Torah says Ach b'yom Vishan on the first day. And the question is, what is the first day? Is it the first day of Pesach, which is the 15th? Or is it the first day, the 14th? Says the Gemara, we have a Pasuk. So the Pasuk says like this, what's the Mikra? Shenem HaVishon on the first. What do we see from the Pasuk? We see that Rishon is referring to the 14th of Nisan, because the Torah there says when you shvin Korban Pesach. So the 14th of Nisan is the day of the Korban Pesach, and therefore Rishon is referring to 14th. So it's biased. Rashi points out there's not so much difference between this drasha and the previous drasha. The previous drasha relied on the fact that it's a contradiction between Shiva Stolim and B'yom Rishon, and therefore we said the only way to resolve the contradiction is to say that B'yom Rishon means the day before. This is just the same answer that Ach B'yom Rishon Tashpisu Sogotech, referring to the day before Pesach, is referring to the 14th of Nisan. How do I know it's referring to the 14th of Nisan? Because of the fact that the Torah elsewhere uses the word Rishon in reference to the 14th of Nisan. In English, you say number one or before, the first or before. Rishon over here doesn't mean the first; it means before. Ach Rishon means the day before you should do the shpisa. Says what? The Omar Kro, Rishon Adam Tivolit, Ear complained bitterly about his lot. We had it actually before. And he was told off. And one of the things he was told off was Rishon Adam Tivolit, when you created before Adam Rishon, that you can be aware of what the destiny of this world. If you're there right at the beginning, then you've got a reason to complain. But if you're not there right at the beginning, you don't know what's been happening till now. So there, when the Pasuk says Rishon Adam Tivolit, what's the exact translation of Rishon Adam Tivolit? Were you born before Adam Rishon? So we see the word Rishon doesn't mean the first. The word Rishon can mean before. That's what the Gemara says. It's again relying on the same pasuk, but from a different angle, not contradiction, not because it's a Shabbat, it's just a different translation. The word Rishon means before. Now the Gemara goes through in Parshas Emor, the Torah uses the word Rishon a number of times. And the Gemara is going to go back and forth. What does the word Rishon there mean? It does mean before, it does mean the first. And the Gemara eventually will come up with a resolution that will satisfy us. But before we get to this final resolution, the Gemara goes through many complicated cheshbonos, so we have to work through. There will be questions which are not resolved until then. Look after the Chedboim Rishon. So if it's of lulav, they should take a lulav on the first day. Now, what does it mean? The first day of Sukkot, day before Sukkot, of course it means the first day of Sukkot. You're going to tell me that it means the day before? That's obviously not. That's not a question. Why not? So the also the was back to the Torah says you should rejoice unto Hashem 7 days, and just like we know that the 7 days is referring to the full 7 days of Sukkot, and it's referring that pasuk is continuation of the pasuk, the mitzvah of lulav. So therefore, we know that the 7 days, the first day is included in the 7 days. Says the boy, if that's your proof, here's what. And then the Torah says, get rid of chometz on the first day, and it says 7 days eat matzahs, which means that we're talking about the 7 days of Pesach. So again, if you're going to say that since it says 7 days, obviously the tradition doesn't mean the day before, you've got the same problem by matzah as well. It says, what in Cain, nichtiv called Rishon. Ha-Rishon, why is it the extra hey? Ha-Rishon, the Rishon, lomari, shmamino lachadamo. When the Torah says Rishon without a hey, it means the first. Ha-Rishon, the first, is referring to the day before. Oh, thank you. What is going to tell this question? If that's the case, if so, let's say the word Ha-Rishon there. There also says the word Rishon. That's why I said that until we get to the final resolution, it's very puzzling. It's actually 3 psukim there in Parshas Emor. That the Torah there tells us one is referring to the mitzvah of taking lulav, which, by the way, is only a mitzvah in Hateh on the first day outside the Beis Hamikdash. But in the Beis Hamikdash, it's a mitzvah all 7 days. That's why some people are makbid and Rashi about it, is to go to the Kosher during the days of Sukkot in order to take lulav there. All those who hold as a mitzvah, the Lamaisa, we who don't live next to Beis Hamikdash, we only have a mitzvah the first day. So 3 times it's been Rishon. Once regarding the first day of taking lulav and Esrog. Once regarding the Issa Melacha of Sukkot, they're not allowed to Melacha on the first and 7th. And once regarding first and 8th. And once regarding Pesach, they're not allowed to do Melacha on the first and 7th. And each time it says Ha-Rishon. And if the Gemara asks the question, why did it say Ha-Rishon there according to your logic? Again, Hasan Ha-Rishon Hashem. Hasan they say Rishon Shabbos, you mentioned Shabbos, you're going to Sukkot, you're not allowed to Melacha. Why Rishon do we come? You're going to say Ha-Rishon there means that the day before Sukkot is not allowed to do Melacha. Have you ever heard of such thing? Of course not. It says also the 8th day. So there you've got an answer. Regarding the question that regarding the Issa Melacha, not to work on Sukkot, says Ha-Rishon and Hashmini, which is mashma, the day before, that obviously can't be. So we say that since the 8th day means the 8th day of Sukkot, Rishon means the first day of Sukkot. Again, let's get it clear. Normally we translate the word Rishon as being the first day of. Here we want to translate the word not as the first day of, but the day before. Rishon meaning before that period of time which goes to the Chometz. Like we see clearly in the pasuk in the year, which means were you born before the Rishon? So the word Rishon then means before. The Gemara asks, the problem is that regarding the Pesachim and Emoy, but 3 Pesachim there, it doesn't work there. The Gemara each time finds an answer which settles it a little bit. So regarding the problem that the first day of Sukkot is Asr Malacha and the 8th day, are you going to say the first day means the day before Sukkot? The Gemara says no. Since the 8th day is referring to the 8th day of Sukkot, the first day is referring to the first day of Sukkot. So the Gemara says like this. So why? We still got the previous question. Shali already asked. And the Torah says Havishon, and you said to me before that when it says Havishon, the Rishon is referring to the day before. Answer one no. That's to exclude Chol HaMoed. There's a machlokes between the Rishonim what to exclude the Chol HaMoed from. Is excluded Chol HaMoed from Isser Malacha? I mean, it says the first or the 8th only then, or is it? For the rest of the time you're allowed to Malacha, or is it coming to exclude the mitzvah of Lulav Chol HaMoed? You might have thought that you should be mechuyev to shake the lulav other days, Havishon only the first. It says the Gemara, the Torah said to us, 1st and 8th, which is mashma, the first day is Asr Malacha, the 8th day is Asr Malacha, according to those who says the Havishon referred to Rishon, the Torah says to shake the lulav, and 8th day you've got Yom Tov, but not more than that. So the Gemara says, no, you'd have you might have thought like this. And on the 8th day, referring to Shmini Atzeres, when I say to you the word and, if I say to you the first day don't do enough, and then I say and on the 8th day you mustn't do, and is always a continuation of a previous statement. So if I say and on the 8th day don't do malacha, what I'm trying to say is not only the previous days, also on the 8th day. So you might have thought that the Torah is coming to tell you that you mustn't do malacha on the Chol HaMoed, and also on the 8th day don't do malacha. And it's a continuation. If that's the case, so therefore you need a special pasuk to exclude it. You said that the vav ubayim hashmini makes you think that you should also be asr malacha on Chol HaMoed, and Havishon is coming to tell you that you're not asr malacha Chol HaMoed. The two things are not necessary. Don't say the word vav, means don't say and on the 8th day, and then you won't have a havim in the asr malacha on the 8th day, and don't say Havishon to exclude it. Says it more like this. The suit. And there's referring to the mitzvah of Pesach, the first day not allowed to malacha. Rishon to become mashma does it mean the day before Pesach is also malacha? I mean like this. Let's summarize it a little because this is the final answer. The Torah in Parash, the Torah when it talks about chometz, which is not in Emoy, it's the Parash of Boy. The Torah says ach b'yim Rishon tashmish to motechem that's in Boy. The Torah says ach b'yim Rishon. And we have a question, what does it mean by Rishon? Does it mean the first day of Pesach? Does it mean the day before Pesach? We had a few proofs it means the day before Pesach, either because it's a contradiction or because it's a Shavuot, etc. Came along on Nachman and said, no, the word Havishon always means the day before. So the Gemara says that's not true. We had 3 places in Parashas Emor where it says the word Havishon, and after all the different back and forth, it is clear that the word Havishon is not referring to the day before. Regarding the Isser Malacha of Pesach, regarding the mitzvah of Shekin Nulav, regarding the Isser Malacha of Sukkot, it's all referring to what? The day, the first of the Sabbath, not the day before. So, how can I answer? Elo says more like this. What the Gemara is going to say is that in Parashas Boy, when it says Havishon, it means the day before. In Parashas Emor, it says Havishon for a different reason altogether. The extra here is for a different reason. And Tosfos says that if you look at the third Tosfos, I should have done the second Tosfos. That Shavayikoi, the lulav and intimate mechon, is referring to Ismaloch and also not to shake the lulav on one day. That's his argument with Rashi. Rashi is only to Ismaloch. And Tosfos says, you look to the standpoint, you go to the old Tosfos, the Cheshbon, he asks that many times the Torah says other places Havishon. I mean, since they're all written together in one short paragraph, we have the word Havishon 3 times, then it makes sense that those Havishons is coming to teach us something else. What is it coming to teach us? And they're coming to teach us something else completely. Because of the reward of keeping 3 mitzvahs, which the Torah refers to as Rishon, Zochu l'shloisha Rishon, Klal Yisrael will merit 3 rewards, which are all referred to with the word Rishon. What are they? What are the 3 mitzvahs are called Rishon? If you remember, not to do malacha on the first day Pesach, to shake lulav on the first day Sukkot, and not to do malacha on the first day Sukkot. If a person keeps those three things, he'll be rewarded with three rewards that all refer to the word Vishen. They are Lahachris Zaweh Shel Esav, to destroy the descendants of Esav. Lebinah Beis Hamikdash, Tad Beis Hamikdash, or Shmoy Shel Mashiach, and to be told the name of Mashiach, meaning Mashiach should be revealed. And the Lord says, where do we see that those three rewards are all referred to the word Vishen? Lahachris Zaweh Shel Esav Dichsev, that's the last verse of Vayetze Hol Vishen Admoni Kolei Kader Sel. Well, look, that we say referring to Esav as Vishen. Well, Lebinah Beis Hamikdash Dichsev Kisei Kobod. That means more, means exalted from the page. He will be the first king to reveal himself. He'll be like the first leader to come and to say. So there are three rewards: getting rid of Esau, Beis Hamikdash, and Mashiach. And to be zeicher to those three, one has to keep the three mitzvahs of Pesach, Sukkot, and Arba Minim. Says the Maharsha, what's the connection? It says very nicely actually that Pesach was celebrated that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us from Mitzrayim. When the person shows gratitude for something, he's guaranteed that he'll be zeicher to more. When you know the best way to be zeicher to future success is the person shows that Kol HaSativ. So you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for being saved from Mitzrayim. Yischad that you'll be saved from Esau. That's one. The second thing it says that's keeping first day Pesach. Keeping first day is Sukkot. So what happens is when you go into the Sukkah, it's called Sivat V'Menusa. It's the shade of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the building of Hashem. It's a spiritual building. It's a spiritual home. So we're zeichet to the most spiritual home that we will ever have. That is the Beis Hamikdash. And finally, shaking lulav. Chazal always referred to shaking lulav as a mitzvah of simcha. In fact, smachim b'fnei Hashem negechem. Shivas Yomim, the Gemara in Sukkah explains, you should rejoice in front of Hashem for 7 days. When you're in front of Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, you shake lulav all 7 days because you have to rejoice in the shaking of lulav. When a person shakes lulav, it's very a simcha. The chinuch says very interestingly that they look very, very nice. They like when the person sees the beautiful fruit, it gives him joy. That's the most simple shot. So the point is, it gives a person joy. What will give us the greatest joy? When Mashiach reveals himself. It says, Maharsha, a small point. What's the name of Mashiach? What's the name of Mashiach? Is Menachem. What's legend says his name will be Menachem. So if his name is Menachem, he's comforting. So therefore, the simcha will give us comfort. Okay. So that's the three things. Again, so far we had the question. The question was, how do I know they're not allowed to have chametz from midday on Erev Pesach? So far, we all focus on one pasuk. We've actually had three ways to see the pasuk. One is it's a contradiction. The only way to reconcile it is to say it's the day before. The second thing is because it's a Gzeirah Shavah. That means it's called Rishon, the 14th. And third of all, because Rishon can actually mean the day before. Rava Omar. Rava says another source that you can't have chametz after 6 hours. You're not allowed to shech to Pesach while you still have chametz. Okay, let's just discuss this a little bit. We're going to learn this at great length. That the order is you carbon atomic is always the very last carbon of the day. There's only one accessible way to include as many carbons of the day possible. Again, the exception to the rule was Pesach, when they do the carbon atomic as early as possible. We're talking about the last carbon atomic. The carbon atomic of the afternoon was always done as early as possible. Now, what's the earliest time to do the carbon atomic? So the pasuk says, "Ben Abayim Minah." What time does it start getting dark? And midday. need only if the wall is exactly paper thin. Once the wall goes like this, even if the sun moves a little bit, only half an hour after midday would you actually see it. Right, so we'll get to you. Okay, so wait half an hour after. Wait half an hour after. Thank you very, very much. Have you done it back onto YouTube, mate?
Yeah.
What?
It's on.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's still on.
Thanks to Moshe for setting it back up. I'm sorry, for some reason, the what's the words for it? It went off for a minute. Sorry about that. Okay. So they bought the common Talmud half an hour after Chatzos. So what was the earliest time you could be in the common Pesach? What's the earliest time? Well, to be very precise, 31 minutes after Chatzos. It takes a minute to be in the common Pesach. So according to Rava, you're not allowed to have chometz from the time you shech the common Pesach. It's a fake Tosfos. Tosfos is more didactic than you are. That it is. First of all, he says you have to be in the common Talmud first, and second of all, without that, it takes you a minute or two from after. So Maisa Tosfos answers that, but if you pull the common Pesach before the common Talmud, it is okay. And what about
as the common Pesach, the common Talmud's been shechted, they can never already the common Pesach been shechted. Second, that's been shechted. No?
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
The second the common Talmud is shechted, they can already have the common Pesach ready to be shechted.
Okay, it still takes a minute. Okay.
Oh,
that's what Tosfos is asking. So Tosfos says, no, you can't, because we know that you can't.
yes, the Toshiba.
No, so Tosfos is answering that, but you can be the common Pesach before the common Talmud, but and then you can bring it a minute after Chatzos in theory, because we're only being machmed an extra half an hour just to be certain. Okay, if you look at Tosfos, this is extra ashbo, we have the Chatzos with Shesh Shmai, so Zanshach Pesach Achat Talmud, but Talmud Shachti if they Chatzos Posur. It's very simple Tosfos, the fourth Tosfos. Okay. So the Ma'aseh Vav's Josh is basically that the time of the common Pesach, you're not allowed to have any chometz. What's the time of the common Pesach? It's after Chatzos. So now we know, simple, that you can't have chometz. Says the Gemara, not everybody shechts a minute after Chatzos. The pasuk says, "Don't shech the common Pesach to have chometz." What happens if I'm a lazy person? It takes me 3 hours to get there, 4 hours together. Am I allowed to have chometz for 4 hours? Well, the Torah says from the time of Shechita. Says the Bible says referring to Yom Tov. Maybe the pasuk is referring to Yom Tov, not the day before Yom Tov. So in fact, Rava's answer, which is the fourth answer, is a mafurish brisa. Rabbi Shmuel says it. Tosfos asks the kasha. If you look at Tosfos again, very short Tosfos, the table of E. That a minute ago we had Tana to be Rabbi Shmuel, which is a different drush. We had it before. Tana to be Rabbi Shmuel, that whole vision before. So he says that sometimes you have to be Rabbi Shmuel and Tana to be Rabbi Shmuel. To be Rabbi Shmuel was what they said in the Beis Hamedrash of Rabbi Shmuel, and Tana to be Rabbi Shmuel is the brises they said over from Rabbi Shmuel. So sometimes they contradict each other. Rabbi Akiva Omer Netzoich. This is now going to be our fifth makor, that when the Torah says that you have to get rid of chometz, it doesn't mean to get rid of it on Pesach, but rather it means to get rid of it the day before Pesach. How are you? The Torah says, get rid of chometz. You're not allowed to do malachas on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to burn on Yom Tov. So how are you going to get rid of your chometz? What? Oh, we'll come to that question. It's a very good question. You ask a very good question, Chaim. Well, what's going on? Why you got other problems? I have to tell you that, in fact, a few years ago, Rav told me that he had a baby a few days before Pesach. This year, Pesach is a Shabbos. I always remember it. I don't know why. He said he spent Pesach morning in the bathroom in the toilet. What happened was he over-ordered challah. His wife couldn't touch the challah because she just after birth. He couldn't eat it. So what did he have to do? You can't burn it. There's Pesach. So he flushed it down the toilet. And he spent ages and ages flushing down the toilet. And after he spent hours on it, he saw that the Chazon Ish writes that flushing down the toilet is not the best way to get rid of chometz altogether. Why? Because Chazon Ish holds that in theory it will be possible to get it out. And Chazon Ish is not so full. Wants you to get rid of it in a more permanent way. Nice, we'll come to it another time. But you're asking a question. But let's get the question clear. Let's get the Gemara clear. Rabbi Akiva says, I've got this. What? Oh, can you do a hefker? We'll see. Why can't you do a hefker? That's what Chaim's asked. Why can't you do a hefker? You're asking this. Let's get to Rabbi Akiva first. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva said, I don't need a makor. Why don't I need a makor? Because the Torah says that you have to get rid of chametz. How do you get rid of chametz? Burning it. Are you allowed to burn on Yom Tov? Of course not. So it must be that you're putting it before Yom Tov. So that's the fifth makor that you have to get rid of chametz before. Rabbi Yosef and Tzorich. Rabbi Yosef says it's not necessary. He's got a sixth word. It's actually similar to the very first. How you must be talking about Yom Tov. Maybe it's referring to Yom Tov. The Torah says the word ach, which divides, because ach always minimizes. If you're going to say that ach b'morisha means get rid of it on the first day of Yom Tov, which is in the middle of the day of the first day of Yom Tov, mishoy, are you allowed to have chametz for half day on Yom Tov? Or is matzah? Since the Torah says that you've got to have 7 days eating matzah, which means 7 days of not eating chametz because they're compared to others, we learned yesterday at the top of the page. And therefore, it's the same halacha as not eating chametz, get rid of chametz. In fact, this is actually the first makor. Now again, the Torah says get rid of chametz. It says ach, meaning you only have to get rid of it halfway through the day. And you can't be talking about on Pesach because they would mean that half the day of Pesach you've actually got chametz. So we've got actually 5 makoros. If you work it out, 5 sources of basis. The sixth is exactly the same as the first. 5 different places where we learn out that you're not allowed, that you have to get rid of chametz before Pesach by chatzos. Now, coming back to Rabbi Akiva told us that you don't need the pasuk. Why don't you need the pasuk? Because the Torah told us get rid of chametz, and the way to get rid of chametz is through burning, and you can't burn on Pesach on Yom Tov. Omar Rav says well. Top of Hey Amud Beis. Shema Nomi Rabbi Akiva Telas. We can learn from Rabbi Akiva 3 halachas. Shema Minoi Bil Chametz Elasreifa. The only way to get rid of chametz is only through burning. That means if you scatter it, if you do a hefka, you are not mekayim the mitzvah of Bil Chametz. Not mekayim it. There's a sefer by Chesler, a beautiful sefer by Chesler, and he writes that some people, when they want to burn the chametz, what do? They pour paraffin and then throw it in the fire. He says, this is what they're doing. You pour the paraffin, it's ruined. You can't eat it anymore. And then you throw it in the fire, you've lost your mitzvah already. The mitzvah is to burn chametz. Now, it's a machlekes, it's a double machlekes. We'll come to it again. I'll just say very briefly. It's machlekes Tanakh Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda, whether you have to burn it or any other way we'll also do. That's one machlekes. There's machlekes actually to us. When was that machlekes? Is that machlekes on Erev Pesach, or is the machlekes also before Pesach? That means, is the machlekes only on Erev Pesach, or also the machlekes before Pesach? So we see, we try and take and burn it. We try and carry the mitzvah according to Rabbi Yehuda. So one we see from Rabbi Akiva, the mitzvah of burning chametz is by getting rid of the chametz burning. Because if the mitzvah of chametz is by, let's say, throwing it down the drains, then you'd be allowed to do it on Yom Tov. The Shema Mino Avo Lechalek Yotzes. Here we need a tiny bit of background, quite a bit of background actually. The Torah says you're not allowed to do malacha on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do any malachas on Shabbos. How many malachas are there? 39 different malachas. And the beginning of Vayakel, Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Klal Yisrael, says, we're not allowed to make a fire on Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos asks the question, what is Moshe Rabbeinu trying to teach them? He already told them you're not allowed to do malachas. And now he came along and told them, don't make a fire. What do you mean? That's not making a fire is one of the 39. So that's a very big question. What was Moshe Rabbeinu telling him? Not make a fire. He should have said, don't cook, don't sew, don't build. Why did he mention only fire? So more brings a machlekes havo lelav yotzes or lechalek yotzes. One shitta is that Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to teach them that if you only do one of the 39 malachas, you already chayav the misa. So therefore, he mentioned fire as one of the 39. He meant if you do any one of the 39, that's bad. Don't think that you only chayav if you do all 39. No, even if you just do one of the 39, that's bad enough. Lechalek, to divide. The other mandama says lelav yotzes. The reason why Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned burning fire is because burning fire is making a fire is more lenient than all the rest. It's a very big chiddush. That means sowing av malacha, building an av malacha, planting an av malacha, but lighting a fire, that's not an av malacha. That's only an issa lav. There's no chorus, there's no chiv misa, because lighting a fire is more lenient than the rest. Now, which one did Rabbi Akiva hold by? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva must have held v'chalik. Not that it's a lav. Now, this is a very big machlekes to show you. If you hold cup, it's very interesting. Why do we see from Rabbi Akiva that he held that lechalik? Maybe Rabbi Akiva held that lighting a fire is a lav, and nevertheless it's forbidden on Yom Tov.
No, because it would have pushed it off. The shpisu would have pushed it
off.
Right,
you asked the shpisu, but you're asking what you're asking. I thought maybe that's what Tisa says. Well, that what? Oh, that's the next thing, Babi Turch. You're asking me Turch, the next thing of the Gemara. Okay, so you're saying what Rabbi Chananel says, which not Rashi nor Tosha say, that if Rabbi Akiva held that lighting a fire is only a lav, not chiyuv koros, what would he have held? that the mitzvah of getting rid of chometz is stronger than the lav of burning it, and therefore, again, what did Rabbi Akiva say? You can't get rid of chometz on the Yom Tov. Why can't you get rid of chometz on the Yom Tov? Because you have to burn it. Says Rava, if he held that lalav yotzes, that making a fire is only a lav, it's not cause, so that it's not such a terrible avera, it's not going to lav and the nas say. That's the echo. Says Rabbi Yochanan, if that's the case, he would have said to you, burn the chometz on Yom Tov. Why? As say, burning chometz is doicha delusa say. Ela mai held lechalik not allowed. Rashi, if you look at Rashi, Rashi just says, yes. Rashi will see. Rashi says that the whole raya is just from the words of Rabbi Akiva. Because Rabbi Akiva used the Lashon, umotzinu lahavoro, if you look at the bottom of the Daf, Hey Amud Aleph, 4 lines to the bottom, umotzinu lahavoro, shi'av malocha. We see from the words of Rabbi Akiva, the havoro is av malocha, not because there's any other logic. Had Rabbi Akiva not used that logic, had Rabbi Akiva said havoro is a lav, the same logic would be true, that you still won't be able to put it on Yom Tov because it's a lav. But since Rabbi Akiva used the word havoro, is a av malocha, is a right that Rabbi Akiva holds the chalik. Teresa says, top of Hayom Beis, let's see the Teresa inside. The chalik goes to call av malocha like Rashi. Meaning like this. On Yom Tov, it's only forbidden to do that which on Shabbos is a real malacha. If on Shabbos it's only a lav, on Yom Tov it's completely mutter. And therefore the fact that Rabbi Akiva told us that you have no way of getting rid of your chometz is a raya that Rabbi Akiva says 3 different explanations. Rashi says it's from the Lashon of Rabbi Akiva. When the Chadan says like you want to say asay dechadoisa asay, because if it's not malacha, it's only asay, it's not an asay. And Teresa says because if it would only be a lav on Shabbos, it won't be anything on Yom Tov. And finally, the third thing we learn from Rabbi Akiva, if you say that, for example, you're allowed to carry on Yom Tov, not just for eating, you're allowed to carry for other things. Why? Once it's permitted, it's permitted. If that's the case, so as you wanted to ask, on Yom Tov, you're allowed to make a fire. If you're cold, you're allowed to make a fire. If you want to eat something, you want to heat up some chicken soup, you're allowed to make a fire. So if that's the case, why can't you make a fire to burn your chometz? Rabbi Akiva said, but if you hold mitoich, what's the svar of mitoich? That anything which is permitted for the sake of Yom Tov, for your benefit of Yom Tov, you're allowed to do it even if it's not direct benefit to Yom Tov. So this is also a benefit. It's a benefit that shouldn't be over a lav, that shouldn't be over a chometz. Again, let's go very briefly, and we have to go back to running out of time. What? Because we hold we don't say mitoich. Rabbi Akiva says, you don't need a pasuk to teach me that burning chometz has to be done before Yom Tov, because without any psukim, I would work it out myself. Why? Because how are you possibly going to burn the chometz in Yom Tov? So therefore, you must get rid of the chometz before Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, from here we learn 3 things. Number 1, that if you're allowed to get rid of chometz not through burning, Rabbi Akiva's logic falls by the wayside. And Rabbi Akiva held the only way to get rid of chometz is only through burning, because if you can get rid of it for, let's say, crumbling it up or making it hefka, so then you can do it on Yom Tov as well. Second of all, that he holds the chalik and not the lav, because if it didn't be allowed, you'd still be allowed to Yom Tov. And third of all, that we don't say mitoich. Mitoich, the logic of mitoich says that once something is mutter for Yom Tov, you're allowed to do it for other reasons as well. Since you're allowed to cook, for example, because you're hungry, so you're allowed to make a fire for other reasons as well. Rabbi Akiva obviously doesn't hold of that, and therefore, since he does not hold of mitoich, says you can't get rid of chometz. Right. We have to move on. Now, this brisa is very difficult, as again, like that before, in the Shakla V'Tara, in the discussion of it. It's only right at the end do we get any sense of clarity. We've actually write at least 4 times on this brisa. The Gemara will ask on it and answer it. So let's just go through it without necessarily understanding every word, every nekuda. The Gemara will explain each point by point. The Gemara is discussing the issue of having chometz. There are 2 main psukim that the brisa is discussing, and the brisa is trying to contrast the 2 and learn what we can learn out from them. The Torah says you mustn't find chometz in your house for 7 days. What do we learn from that pasuk? There's another pasuk. Now, there are a few differences between the 2 psukim, if you notice. One, it says lecho means what? Yours. So, for example, if you come to my house bringing chometz, I won't be awesome. It should be yours. But the previous pasuk says lo yimotzei, and it doesn't say anything about lecho. It just says don't find chometz in your house, which is mashma that you can't even have somebody else's chometz. Furthermore, then one of them says bebotechem, in your homes. The other one says b'chol gvulecho. in all your borders. So there's a difference. For example, let's say it's not in my home, it's in my garden. So from the first pasuk it would be okay, the second pasuk, and a third difference is, well, I'm just pointing out those three. One is l'cha, doesn't have to be yours. One is b'votechem b'chol gvulecha. And third of all is like this: lo yiroeh is a issa to see chametz. So let's say I take a chametz, I put my tablecloth over it. Am I over the issa of lo yiroeh? No, I can't see it. I can't see it. But if the Torah says lo yimotze, it shouldn't be found by you, it shouldn't exist by you, so of course you're over. So we have three differences between the Pesukim, but the Gemara is going to try to explain what halachas we learn in Maisa. I'm really sorry, I'm very hot. Do you mind opening the windows again? Oh, sorry, even further. Thank you very much. I don't know, is anybody cold? No. Hot. Okay. So again, so the Gemara says we've got these two Pesukim and we have to work out how to reconcile the two Pesukim. So the Gemara says like this: the Fi shenema, lo yiro lechos soy, shalcho yatavoy, not allowed to see that which belongs to you. Be allowed to see Shalachem if it belongs to other people, or if it belongs to Hekdesh. If it belongs to Hekdesh, you're allowed to have. Let's say, for example, you donate flour and water to the base of Mikdash. Let's say you donate flour and water to the base of Mikdash. And then you leave it in my house over Pesach, there's no problem, because it does not belong to me, it belongs to Hekdesh. Yochel, you might have thought, Yatmin, I could just hide it under my tablecloth, that should be okay. You might have thought that if a guy wants to leave all his chametz by me, it should be okay. Which Rashi straight away asks, well, you just said a second ago that is okay if it's a word goy. How can you say that it's not okay? So the Gemara asks that. Say they're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to have chametz from a goy. Even though the second goy said you're allowed to, now we say not allowed to. You might have thought that's only by a goy that you are not in charge of, or a goy that doesn't live by you. By a goy that you're in charge of, or you rule over, or lives with you in the chotzer minayin. How do I know that is also forbidden? Which Rashi again asks the question that if already a goy which you do not have a ownership over and he does not live by you is forbidden, a goy that lives by you and you have ownership over, of course it's forbidden. So the price doesn't make any sense. I only know in your house. But how do I know if I've got it in my pit outside or in my cave or in a circle pit? How do I know? All your borders. I would still say from this pasuk at bottom, in the house, I'm over on all of these things. Not to own, not to see, not to hide, not to get from a goy. But if it's outside the house, you're allowed to have other people's chametz. How do I know that the halachas which we learn from one pasuk, we learn it by the other pasuk, and the halachas we learn in the second pasuk apply also to the first pasuk? Both pasukim it mentions the word sa'oi. That makes the gzir shava. It says by the pasuk of the houses, sa'oi lo yimotze b'botechem in your houses. Just like the word sa'oi, whenever you have a gzir shava, we learn that whatever applies to one applies to the other. Just like sa'oi, which says by the houses, you have all these halachas which we said previously, which we will more elaborate in a minute. You have all the same halachas, not just in your house, in your garden. The Maisa is the halacha, by the way, that there's not one iota of difference between your house and your garden, or your house and your office, or anything like that regarding the halachas of having chametz in your house. Because we learn Gzir Shavah, so even though it says b'votechem in your homes, but we have b'chol gvulecha on all your borders. You're allowed to have other people's chametz in your house. You're allowed to have other people's. And now the one's going to ask that you contradicted yourself in a few ways. Halacha the Maisa, I was looking at the Mishnah Board, it's very interesting. Now, let's say, for example, you have a Geisha cleaner or Geisha worker in your office. So he wants to bring sandwiches, Chol Moed Pesach. So there's no problem because it's his, not yours. There is a small problem if you own the office and you have a shared cupboard which belongs to you, and he comes in, let's say 9 o'clock, and he works from 9 till 5, and he says, you know what, I leave my chametz in the cupboard, I'm not going to carry my sandwiches around with me in a bag, I put it in your cupboard, or he brings, let's say, for a few days, he wants to bring a packet of biscuits, to leave it in the cupboard for a few days. That is a problem. That is a true halachic problem. So what should you do? Very good. That's what I was going to say. Oh, Mama. That means you might have thought that it's only forbidden by a goy that you don't have rulership or that it doesn't live with you. A goy that you are in charge of, or or he lives with you. Minan, how do I know that's also forbidden? Say that's also forbidden because then date is found in your ishus. Klapelaya means which way around does it turn? Meaning it doesn't make any sense. You're saying not only is a goy which you're in charge of, and it lives with you, it's also, how do I know about a goy that doesn't live with you and you're not in charge with? Sorry, around. A goy which you don't live with and he's not in charge of is also, how do you know a goy that you do live with and you are in charge of is also? It doesn't make any sense. That's obviously if the first case, which is not living with you and you're not in charge of is also covered with the second case. Abaya says you have to turn it around. Abaya says you change the losh of the vice around.
Will you get those?
No, you don't get Lozu Afsu here. Lozu Afsu is when the Mishnah tells a halacha and then tells you another halacha. Here we're trying to learn from a drasha, and we're saying the drasha would only apply to A. Let's say, how do I know also B? If B is more obvious than A, then the brisa can't say, how do I know also B? That doesn't make any sense. Don't turn it around. Va'avei is going on the first case, meaning on the first case which says it's mutter. You're allowed to see others. And of the Beis Hamikdash, what about a goy that you didn't? That's only by a goy that you're not in charge of. What about a goy that you're in charge of, or a goy that lives with you? How do I know it's mutter? Not how to know it's awesome. Says the pasuk that it says mutter. Pray the Gemara. That's not. It doesn't make sense according to you, Rava, because the word lo yemotze means don't be found. Don't be found. It doesn't mention the breath of anything about being yours. Lo yemotze means it mustn't be found, which would seem to be saying issa, forbidden. It seems to be saying don't be found, even if it's not yours. It's trying to find a source to say it's mutter and mention the pasuk l'isur. Rashi says that this is a pshat. That what happens is that when the Torah uses a word which is not necessary in its own pasuk, we take the word out of the pasuk and we add it to another pasuk. So the Torah says lo yiroi lecha soy v'lo yiroi lecha chometz b'chol gvulecha. Now the Torah did not need to say the word lecha twice there. So therefore, since the Torah did not need to say the word twice there by lecha, so we take the word lecha from there, add it to the pasuk of lo yimotze, and it's as if the Torah says lo yimotze lecha, meaning that the issue of having chametz in your house is only if it's yours. So therefore, it comes out according to Rava that the Brisa is permitting it when you have chametz, which is not your own, A goy with you, even if it lives with you and even if he's under your control. You might have thought that since the Torah says you're not allowed to own chametz, so all I need to do is cover to the tablecloth or take it from a goy, which says the imotzi mustn't be found, mustn't exist. That you're not allowed to see yours, but you're allowed to see of others, which clearly states that you are allowed to have chametz. Again, the Brisa starts off that you mustn't own your own chametz, and then the Brisa continues by saying you might thought that from a goy is mutter. You just said it is mutter. And this is the Gemara's maskana, and it stays for another page later as well. That what happens is any chametz which you're responsible for, then you're not allowed to have in your house. Any chametz which you're not responsible for, then you allow. Any chametz which you're not responsible for, you're allowed to. Chametz which you're responsible for, you're not allowed to. So if you go back to the Brisa, the Brisa starts off by saying you're not allowed. You're allowed to have other people's chametz in your house, like go hekdesh. You might have thought if I'm allowed to have other people's chametz in the house, so maybe I should become a shomer, I should become a god. Let's example, some people own like not a bank, but you have places you keep security boxes. So maybe I should open up a business for Pesach, and the business would be a security boxes for all the goyim of the local town, because I'm not allowed to have my own, but I'm allowed to have goyim, and I'll take responsibility. It says, well, no, that you're not allowed to. That's what it means. So you're not allowed to hide your chametz. Alternatively, you're not allowed to have chametz from a goy in your house if you've accepted responsibility. And how do we know that? Because the Torah says lo yimotze. Lo yimotze means it mustn't exist. It mustn't be found. There mustn't be a possibility of it being in your possession. So if you're not allowed to have chametz, you should take achayos. And this halacha applies equally to your house and equally to the garden. Sorry. Vav would say to the people of Mechuzah, which he was the Vav of, burn the chametz of the army in your house. That means the army would leave chametz in the house, burn it. Why? If it would get stolen or lost, it would be yours. You'd have to pay. It's as if it's yours. Any chametz you should have to pay if it got lost, it's like it's yours. The Gemara Bava Kama brings a machlikus of Shimon and the Chachamim like this. The halacha is if you steal a sheep and you're found, you have to pay double. If you shecht it, etc., you have to pay 4-5 if it's an ox or a cow or a sheep, etc. That's only if it belongs to a normal human being. If it belongs to a hektash, you do not pay double and you do not pay 4-5. So let's say, for example, Chaim over here makes a korban. This is his korban, a sheep, and I go and steal it. I don't have to pay double. Now, there's two kinds of korbanos. There's neder and there's nedava. Nedava, when you say this is the sheep which will be a korban. Neder is when you say I promise to bring a korban, and then you allocate a certain sheep to be the one to fulfill your neder. What's the difference between neder and nedava? Oh, very good. What's with one animal, and that makes stuff give it up. Oh, very good. It gets stolen. So let's say he made this as a nedava. This is the korban he's going to bring. If I steal it, he's potter, and I don't have to pay double. I have to give him back only one. If, though, he said a neder, which means that if this one gets stolen, he now has to provide another one. So by me stealing it, I'm actually making him out of pocket. Even though this is a korban, and it's no longer his, because he's decided to bring it as a korban shalomim. But nevertheless, since by stealing it, he's out of pocket, because now he's going to have to provide another sheep as korban shalomim. So it's a machlokes of Shimon and the Chachamim. Do I have to pay double or 4-5 if I shecht it, etc.? It's a machlokes of Chachamim. What's the yesod of machlokes? Do we say that something which causes a financial loss, it's as if it's a real belonging to him? That means at the end of the day, this sheep is not his. He's made it into korban shalomim. But the fact that I stole it is causing him now to have to go and buy another one. So Shimon says that now, since he has to go and buy another one, it's as if I stole it directly from him, and therefore I have to pay double on 4 and 5. The Chachamim say, no, at the end of the day, it belongs to Hekdash's pot. So the world says like this. Over here, we just said that if, let's say, a goy would come to me with a loaf of bread and say to me, can you look after it for Pesach? Yes. And if it gets burnt or lost, you'll pay me back. For sure. Then the halacha is, I have to burn it. Why? So the chayre, that's going according to which shitta? Very good. Like Shimon, the says the Gemara. What's it going to say? Since the Torah said the word "layimot," it's coming to include ikadomi. Some say the other way around. If you think about it, according to Rambam, it's not kemomon. It says how you do itzich layimot. That's why we needed a pasuk. If you say davar gem lemomon is kemomon, why do you need the Torah to dash? Lo yimotze, that I'm not allowed to take people's chametz to guard it. Of course not. Davar gem lemomon is kemomon domi. So according to Reb Shimon, of course I'm not allowed to take a goy's chametz, because if I take a goy's chametz, I'm actually storing my chametz, because at the end of the day, davar gem lemomon kemomon domi. So it says it's say if after Pesach the loaf of bread is still around, what would I give him back? The loaf of bread. So lav v'shusakoi, therefore it's not mine. Kamash below. In the case, we have a machlokes davar gem lemomon kemomon domi in the whole Torah, everywhere, except for Pesach. On Pesach, everybody agrees that davar gem lemomon, you're not allowed to have it in your house. You're not allowed to have in your house chametz which you bear responsibility. That means even though there's machlokes davar gem lemomon kemomon domi, regarding Pesach there's no machlokes. So one time the Gemara asks the question, why? Why should Pesach be different? The Gemara answers because it says lo yimotzi. The second time the Gemara asks the other way around. If you hold davar gem kemomon domi, so there's obviously logical that if I have chametz which belongs to a goy and I take responsibility, that I shouldn't be allowed it. Why do you need a special drosh of lo yimotzi? Answers the Gemara. Nevertheless, even though it's davar gem kemomon domi, the problem is at the end of Pesach I'm going to give him back the same loaf of bread. Rashi has got very lot of. I was hoping to say some more, but I tell you very thing Rashi writes. That what happens is if a person owns a lot of chametz, he can be makdish all his chametz, and then there's no problem having it in his house. And then after Pesach, what can he do? Go to Rav and have chavot on the hektash. You can have chavot on the hektash. Right? It's got a very, very interesting thing. The Chelkas Yov asks a question. According to the man, this is an unbelievable question. Chelkas Yov leaves it as a kasha shem kamoy. Everybody's yotzim many times in sukkahs by matonam nos lachse. But meaning matonam nos lachse. Yeah, matonam nos lachse. Now, what happens if you give somebody a lulav and matonam nos lachse and he throws it in the bin? What would that halacha be? He has to pay you. Says Dava Gavin Moment or not? Of course it's Gavin Moment. Now if you say Dava Gavin Moment Dami, so who does it really belong to? It belongs to me, not you. I give you the lulav, and I say to you, hey, you can take it, but you throw that lulav. So you would be chayv, as if it's my lulav. Says Chelkas Yov. No, it says Chelkas Yov. How can you ever be it's Maton Nosach? Chelkas Yov means that's a kasha. That's a big question. Okay, we have to. This still doesn't have to think about it. We're up to Vavam Dalef Boimunei. Tomorrow it's straight after Shachris. Motzei Shabbos is 8 o'clock, not 5 to 8. Normally it's 5 to 8. On Shabbos it's 8 o'clock, and tomorrow it's straight after Shachris. Tomorrow's Shiur is much shorter. It's much shorter. It's only 25 minutes, half an hour, and we don't always cover the full stuff. We'll only get to the 2 dots of this. It will be on Zoom afterwards or before. Join. Thank you very, very much.